We have sample translations on our website that we ask them to do for us and return them to us, and we have a look at them. Again, I'll say spelling errors, blah, blah, blah. What happens before translators begin working with a company, particularly with us? We have them sign a contract, and in no way does that guarantee that they'll continue working with us for any specific period of time. It just guarantees that they're available to us, and it guarantees to them that they'll get paid on time and things like that. We also have, I think very few firms in Turkey have this, but almost every firm in the United States I know has such a thing, is signing this confidentiality agreement, as Serkan was just speaking about towards the end. Working with high-level clients is really a privilege, and betraying that trust, whether you're the translator or you're the company, can guarantee that you won't be working with companies of that level ever again. So we require all of our translators to sign a confidentiality agreement that includes things like they won't go out and try to get the client on their own, like Serkan mentioned, but also divulge any personal information about the company, what their earnings are, if they have access to any particular information that's specific to the company that no one else should know. We try to keep that information confidential. And also they provide us their payment information so we can pay them for their services. We talked about this. As a freelancer, you can work everywhere. You can work with several companies, or you can work in an office like we do, which has some other benefits like insurance and a full-time job and a steady salary and a guaranteed workflow. I kind of wrote this quickly. If you speak English, it's easy to remember because they all start with an A. What are the expectations from a company? Your availability, accessibility, all these things I know Serkan spoke about before, so I won't repeat what he said and bore you. How much money will I make? Serkan did speak about this a little bit before. But of course it varies from firm to firm, and particularly, like he said, country to country. I mean, in the United States or in Europe, you can earn 3 times as much money for doing the same amount of work and exerting the same amount of effort as you do here in Turkey. So it's in your interest to look for jobs online as a freelancer. Obviously, language to language, it varies as well. If you know a rare language or a very difficult language like Japanese or Thai or any other of those languages, obviously you're going to get much more money for doing those types of translations. Again, subject to subject. If you have a very niche specialization, you can get more money for that. Most companies pay per word throughout Europe and the United States, but here in Turkey and in our firm, we pay by character. This is a little chart that I made to show you how our workflow goes in our office. So I don't know if you can read here, I'll just read it out loud again. If we receive a call or an email from a client with a request, they tell us what the nature of the document is, how many characters or how many words it is. We prepare a proposal and send it back to them with the amount, with the total amount on it. They accept or reject it. From there, we send it out to our translators, our project coordinator, who received the proposal from the client, contacts our translators and says, can you do this job? They say, yes, of course, and I will translate it. They translate it. It comes back to our project coordinator. Our project coordinator sends it to our editor, which is sometimes me. And then the editor sends it back to the project coordinator, who then delivers it to our satisfied client. This, I won't really bore you. This is very technical stuff, but I'm sure you might have some questions about these things. I've prepared a style guide for our translators who translate into English, with some of the common mistakes that are made from Turkish into English, or for that matter, any language into English, because English is a very complex language. We can give you a copy of this PowerPoint presentation to one of you guys, and you can distribute it as you like. I won't go through every single word, but I just put up some of these common mistakes in spelling that are made, or usages, I guess, of some of these words. For example, accept and accept, advice, advice. Very similar words, but English is really strange like that. where to use different kinds of numbers, where to spell them out, where to use the numeral, what are some other examples? How to use decimals and percentages. One of my biggest pet peeves that I get as an editor is a comma in the place of where a period should go in decimals and percentages. I find that quite a bit. Let's see. Again, where to write them out. There are lots of rules about numbers, so this could be pretty helpful, I think. Abbreviations. These are some really common abbreviations that people kind of mix up sometimes. Example, millimeter, centimeter, those are pretty common, you can figure those out. But hour, minute, those are particularly, I'm particularly strict about those when it comes to academic writing, because the journals are very strict about how those get presented in the academic writing. Hyphens, where to use hyphens, you can read through all of this later. Articles, I think this is probably the trickiest thing for most non-native speakers of English, where to use an, a, or the. Common mistakes. Here I can read through these because these are kind of fun. When talking about a group, you must generally use the before the name of the group. For example, the control group, the oleic acid group. In scientific or academic articles, we don't use the word besides because it is too common and friendly, let's say. We usually use furthermore. And these are citation issues. Because I do a lot of editing of scientific papers, I guess this is why I included all of these scientific mistakes that are commonly made here. Do not use however as a conjunction. That is a very common mistake that I find, especially because I think in Turkish, it must seem like you're a really awesome writer if you can write a sentence that's 500 words long. But in fact, that is not awesome. So it gets translated, and sometimes the translator tries to keep the sentence as one sentence, which you don't have to do. You can divide sentences when you translate. So don't use however as a conjunction between two sentences. That just is a run-on. So if you do have to use however, you can use a semicolon. But on the other hand, another abuse that I find a lot in Turkish, and especially from Turkish into English then, is the abuse of the semicolon. Again, it doesn't make your sentence any more awesome if it's really long and run on. It doesn't make it any clearer for the translator or the person you're trying to get to read your article. So this is just a picture of our team again, looking very debonair. And that's all. If you guys have any specific questions about usage or English grammar usage or anything, you can read through the presentation, or you can ask me now, or if you want any questions, you can, Serkan can come back up here and we can answer your questions together if you'd like. Yes?
About ProfCom, maybe you didn't mention about, but how will we connect with them? How will we relate with them?
I can show you pros online here. I'm just going to use this page if that's okay. Oh, I can show you some of these other things. There are a couple other things that I wanted to mention I forgot. So if you just go in here and you can create an account, you can do lots of things. Like, it's a very good resource for, I mean, it has things about like terminology here. You can post a question if you have a question about terminology. You can look for jobs here. We use this often to find translators, or for translators to find us. It's just a great resource for the whole profession, I think. I don't know if there's anything you want to add.
Not for to get some information, for to find some job opportunities.
Yes, from here you can use that. If you log in, I mean, if you create an account, for example, you can look here and it says browse jobs. You can select your source language, let's say Turkish. And And let's say we want to translate into English. Oops. Why can't I not Old English? Okay, then we'll just search those jobs. So if you, then if you become a member here, you can contact the firms directly. You can contact other translators directly from here. Also, while we're here, I just wanted to show one example about. Which one was it? Do you remember? Here? Okay. Maybe it's this one. No. Here. Okay. I wanted to show you my worst nightmare. This is from a translator who was not an expert in their field. I mean, actually they kind of were supposed to be, but I ended up doing a lot of re-translating and a lot of editing on this document because they just weren't very conscious or careful about their translating. For example, here you can see, and I know these words because I grew up on a farm, so it was kind of fortunate that I was the editor. So we don't use the word dry grass, we use hay in an agricultural setting. Just things like this, and this was really funny to me, vetch with hairy fruit. I mean, really? Does that even sound remotely logical in English that there would be a plant called that? So, I mean, there are simple things that you can do. So I went back to the Turkish version, found the name of it, that it was used in Turkish, then found the Latin version of that, then found the Google pictures, and then found the English from there. So Google is your best friend if you don't want to make your editor crazy. But as you can see, this was really a nightmare for me. And this is what I was talking about, the commas where there should be periods. We don't use commas for decimal points in the United States. So, yeah, this is just another example of not fun editing. The other thing I wanted to show really quick, I know you all use Facebook because it's like a disease. So if you can, or if I can go there. Okay. If you can like our page and follow us, we have lots of fun resources on our page. For example, I kind of try to post something at least every day, one article about translation or interpretation or language, at least once a day, sometimes twice a day. There's our friend Sarkam. Like accents, or like about French, or let's see, what else? Sometimes they're in Turkish when I'm not the one posting them. We have pictures from our events, so if you and your friends could like us, we would really appreciate that. This is kind of and I post funny articles sometimes too. This is about translation from Chinese to English. Also, you can follow us on Twitter. We have a Twitter account here. And our address is Nova Translation. So you can follow our activity there. That's it. Any other questions?
Yes. One question for Serkan Bey actually. Serkan Bey, aslında kısaca üzerinden geçtiniz ama biraz daha konuşmanın belki faydalı olabileceğini düşünüyorum. Terminoloji konusundaki müşteri beklentilerinden bahsettiniz ve sizin saatler harcayarak hazırlamış olduğunuz alan terminolojisinden bahsettiniz. Bunlar birbirini tutmadığı zamanlarda yaklaşım nasıl oluyor, nasıl uzlaşılabiliyor? Siz ciddi düzeltmeler yapıyorsunuz, daha önce oturmuş olan yanlış kalıpları belki düzeltmeye çalışıyorsunuz zaman zaman. Bundan memnun kalınıyor mu? Kalınmadığı durumlarda siz neler yapıyorsunuz? Çünkü Biz bunu çok yaşıyoruz arkadaşlarımızla derslerde, özellikle teknik çeviri derslerinde. Bazen bizim kullanmayı tercih etmediğimiz şekilde terminolojiler oturmuş olabiliyor.
Evet.
Bunu
Bizim sıkça başımıza gelen aslında mesela yine Edison'ın bir çeviri edit etmişti. Maliye Bakanlığı'nın çevirisiydi. Maliye Bakanlığı farklı şekilde kullanılmasını istedi. Hani Edison'la birlikte de gittik. Kurumda da yani doğru kullanımı bu şekilde olması gerekirdi. Ama yanlış olan kullanım uzun sürelerden beri oturduktan sonra onu değiştirmek zor oluyor ve kurum artık o yanlış kullanımı doğruymuş gibi sahipleniyor. Onun değiştirilmesini istemiyor. Bu sıkça başımıza gelen. Özellikle teknik çeviri yaparken arkadaşlar terminoloji konusunda sondan başa doğru gitmek yerine başta çeviriye başlamadan önce bizim için tuzak olabilecek, işte çeviri içerisinde çok fazla geçen teknik terminolojiyi oturtursak ve müşterimizle teknik terimleri teyitleşirsek, ondan okey alırsak geri kalan kısmı sadece bizim için bulmaca gibi oluyor işte. Yani gerekli kelimeleri, terimleri yerine oturtuyorsunuz. Zaten terim bulmakta zorlanmıyorsanız çevirimin sizin için güçlüğü de ortadan kaybolur. Bizim en çok vaktimizi alan şey terimlerin araştırılması, doğru oturtulması. Yoksa okuduğunuz zaman şeyi anlıyorsunuz. Yani hani bu kelime acaba ne demek istedi diye yarım saatinizi vermek yerine müşterinize ulaşıp işte hani doğrudan ulaşabilirsiniz ya da bir çeviri firmasında in-house olarak çalışıyorsanız yine farklı iletişim kanalları var. İnsanların gerçekten hoşuna gidiyor. Ama süreç olarak sondan başa doğru gitmeyi değil de başta terimleri oturtup sona doğru gitmeye çalışın. Böylelikle daha kolay olduğunu göreceksiniz. Hem editöre çok daha az düşecek, az daha iş düşecek. Sizin de çalışmanızı aldıklarında, ilk baktıklarında ha tamam benim istediğim gibi olmuş diyecekler. Yoksa her şeyi bileceğiz diye bir şey yok. Yani çevirmeniz sonuçta. Bulabildiğimizi yazıyoruz. Ama aldıklarında da bilebiliyorlar. Yani bizim bulduğumuz bu. Ama sen onu bize söylersen senin istediğini yazacağız. Başka soru sormak isteyen arkadaşlar var mı? Bayağı biz sıkmışız belli bizlerde.
I just wanted to show this one really
Buyurun.
quick. Oh, sorry.
Ah, sorry.
No, go ahead.
Ben staj hakkında soru sormak istiyorum. Siz bildiğim kadarıyla staj öğrencileri kabul ediyorsunuz. Staj yaptığınız
Yok, staj olarak gelen arkadaşlarımız oluyor. İşte yaz tatilinde ya da benim ders programım müsait diyorlar. Haftada bir dersim var. İşte hafta müsait olduğum zamanlarda gelmek istiyorum diyorlar. Bizim kapımız açık. İçeride mutfak olarak bizim tabir ettiğimiz çevirmen arkadaşlarımızın çalıştığı yer var. Doğrudan gelindiğinde stajyer arkadaşlara çeviri yaptırmıyoruz. Hani berber örneğini verdik ya usta çırak gibi. Yanına oturuyorlar. Hani nasıl araştırma yapıyor, kelimeleri nasıl buluyor, nasıl çeviri yapıyor. Belli bir süre bunun izlenmesinin faydası oluyor. Daha sonra yavaş yavaş basit işlerle başlanabiliyor. Bu yapılan basit işleri yanınızdaki usta çevirmenle kontrol ediyorsunuz. Bunun faydası hem zaman içerisinde güveniniz oturuyor, hem de işte tek başınıza bir senede öğreneceğiniz yöntemleri, sistemi 2 ayda, 3 ayda oturtmuş olabiliyorsunuz.
Peki çeviri bürolarından ziyade ne gibi kurumlarda staj yapmanızı önerebilirsiniz?
Ya ben şimdi söylemeyi unuttum aslında. Mesela ondan da değinmek istiyordum. Öğrenciyken yapılabilecek bir sistem. Mesela üniversitenizde hukuk bölümü var mı bilmiyorum. Var, evet. Mesela hukuk bölümünün derslerine gidip müsait olduğunuz zamanlarda hukuk derslerine katılabilirsiniz. Eğer yani hocalar da anlayışlıdır diye tahmin ediyorum. Yani hani kimse benim dersime girme demez. Orada ne oluyor? Hani temel bir hukuk alıyorsunuz ya da büyük bir kampüsünüzün olduğunu düşünün. Hacettepe Üniversitesi'ndesiniz. Tıbba giriş gibi işte 101 dersleri. Hani onlara gerilim, temel oluşturulması bence çok faydalı. Yani hocalarımız da hep konuşuluyor işte hani ders müfredatına nelerin eklenmesi anlamında işte sonuçta biz mezun olduktan sonra hukuk çevresi, tıp çevresi, finans çevresi bunlar bekleniyor bizden ama hiç finansın F'sini görmediysek böyle bir şey beklemek de yani bir hani şöyle düşünmek lazım. Bir elektrik mühendisi olarak mezun oluyorsunuz. Elektrik mühendisinden baraj yapması beklenmiyor. Ama biz çevirmen olarak mezun olduğumuzdan her şeyi çevirmemiz bekleniyor. Bunu değerlendirmek lazım. İşte hani seçim dedik ya, mesela hukuk çevresinde uzmanlaşmak istiyorsanız bence çeviri bürosunda staj yapmaktansa bir hukuk bürosunda, uluslararası iş yapan hukuk bürosunda, çevirilerin döndüğü bir hukuk bürosunda staj yapmak daha faydalı olabilir, daha fazla ufkumuzu açabilir diye düşünüyorum. Sorular varsa yine cevaplamaktan memnuniyet duyarız. Sizin bilmek istediğiniz varsa hocam.
Ben çok teşekkür ediyorum geldiğiniz için ve her ikinize de bu bizim için çok verimli olacak konularda konuşmalarınız için. Var mı arkadaşlar ekstra? Tamam, o zaman biz şimdi size çiçeklerimizle teşekkür etmek istiyoruz arkadaşlarımız.